images. And these collections of energy are numerous inside of you. Some have even said they're infinite. We don't know. So the Queen archetype, the King archetype, the Warrior archetype, the Lover archetype, the Peacemaker archetype. You name a lot of these things. So when you think of that energy, what phase comes to mind, or what situation? Okay, so it's a way of recognizing these energies are within you, and you honor them by choosing how you can express them. So for example, those of you who exercise, you're tapping into the Warrior archetype. Okay? Those of you who are enjoy and work with cooking, that's the Magician archetype. Okay? You're mixing different ingredients and coming up with something delicious. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to begin with a poem by one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver. She's an American of happy memory, recently deceased, won the Pulitzer Prize for her poetry. This one's called Mindful. Mindful. Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. O good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass, made out of grass. As so many of these saints and mystics have pointed out to us, the extraordinary is expressed through the ordinary, for those with the eyes to see. It's a wonderful way to wake us up to, we don't have to go up to a mountain or to go to the ocean. Is that everything you see or hear or experience out here is a reflection of what's already inside you. And so this is why we speak about today, someone like Mary Oliver would be referred to as a creation mystic, is that you see as the Creator sees. You experience the Creator experiences it, and you find this connection, this joy bubbling up, as Mary refers to it. So I'd like to lean into now what are some specific practices that can help each of us to enhance the intimacy with all of ourselves, So giving you a handout there that has some ideas, and certainly I encourage you to add to them what works for you. So the first thing is what I quickly referred to earlier, and that is periods of silence. Whenever you're, having a drawing to want to distract yourself with something, just pause, just for a moment and ask yourself, is it better for me just to sit here in silence? And to notice, what's that word again? To notice my discomfort. Or to notice this moment is enough. The one thing I would encourage you to do is to notice your thoughts. One thing that's helped me is to practice using short proverbs or sayings or phrases that connect me with the essential, the type of thing that Mary's describing in her poem. So for example, when it's just a moment of enjoying sitting in the morning with a cup of tea, I say to myself, this moment is as perfect as it could possibly be. I don't need anything or anyone else. Or just looking at the scenery, the cat walking across the walkway, watching the wind tickle the leaves. Now, what I've also learned is, can I say that when things are difficult? I'm stuck in traffic. This moment is as perfect as it possibly be. You see, it's both and, it's not either or. Both and reminds us that we're imperfect creatures. Yes, if we had our preference, we don't want to be stuck in traffic. We don't want to be, hiding because the storm is so overwhelming. But this is what's been given to us. How can we sit with it? How can we honor it? Another way is journaling. How many of you actually journal? Oh, great, you're unusual. Most times when I ask that, I get maybe 3 or 4 people raise their hand. Journaling is a definite discipline that can help us. But I want to say up front, I've been a confessor for so many years, please, for God's sake, don't share your journal with anybody, including your spiritual director or your therapist. What you do is you Xerox the part you want to share with them. We are all curious beings. I've had to listen to too many confessions of spouses that it changed the perspective of their spouse, for worse, not better. And especially if they're reading the journals after their spouse has died. Painful stuff. So it's your responsibility to place your journal in a place that no one knows. And it would be wise to take something in confidence that when you die, you have one burning. Okay? Because again, for the simple reason that unless you're willing to have what's there shared, you know, I must admit my mom kept her journals around, and my sister said, "You want to read them?" I said, "No, I don't. I do not want to read them." You know, because again, this is what you're doing here. This is a soul work. You're ideally writing to parts of you, naming parts of you, your inner child, the archetypes I'm referring to, or you're writing it to God. Do you want people invading the conversation? Something to think about. But when do we use our journal? A good time is when you feel stuck. I use my journal a lot when I'm angry. Because for me, when I'm angry, usually I'm confused. And so writing to the anger clarifies it for me. Because any emotion is meant to clarify the thought that's hidden in the emotion. So the more that you can befriend your emotions or your thoughts, the more you can get what your soul's trying to wake you up for. So a journal, yes, it's a wonderful tool. Now, please let me say your journal is not your diary. You don't necessarily have to pick up your journal every day. But you want to pick it up often enough that it becomes a friend. I would also say use another journal, right from the back forward, for your dreams. And that's a whole other retreat. But your dreams are powerful because your dreams are the unedited version of God speaking to you and bypassing your ego, your conscious life. And like just the other night, I had a powerful dream. It was like alternate experience. It was powerful. But all the dreams you're doing, 90% of them are about waking you up to what you don't know. That's inside you. 90% of them. So that would be enough, hopefully, to get you started. That and active imagination. If you want a great book to help guide you, a book called Inner Work. Inner Work by Robert Johnson is excellent. It's pithy, very to the point. Thin book. It gives you the skill set of how do you remember dreams and how do you interpret them. Secondly, how to work with active imagination. A third one that can help you grow in a deeper self-knowledge is fasting. Now, before you start groaning, I'm not just talking about fasting from food or certain liquids. We choose to fast from something that in some way is getting in the way of feasting on its opposite or complement. So, for example, let's suppose that you are a writer or you are a public speaker and you recognize that the good use of words can help people. But you also admit, yeah, the bad use can get in the way and harm people, like Catherine Marshall. She tells a story of one day she had writer's block, and it had been for over 6 months, and she's really frustrated. So she asked God to show her, what do you want me to do? And she sensed God say to her in her prayer, I want you to proclaim a fast. He said, oh, that's great. 24 hours, 36, 48, what do you want? There's no answer. And this gentle nudge, I want you to fast from gossip and negative talking. Oh, this is going to be easy. Oh, no problem. So she finished her prayer, went in the kitchen and fixed breakfast for herself and her husband, and she placed the plate in front of her husband, sat down, they said the meal, a bit of grace, and then she started to launch off into something, and she realized, oops, it was gossip about the next door neighbor. She shut up. Then she thought of something else to talk about, she started again, and she had to stop. It was gossip about a family member of theirs. The whole meal she was silent. Honey, her husband said, honey, are you okay? I'm fine, thank you. And she was so frustrated herself that she put all the dishes in the sink and washed them and went off to work. And she's only there about a half hour when one of her favorite girlfriends came by and gave her some juicy gossip. You know the way it works in gossip, you know? If I give you some, you give me some. Catherine just said, I have nothing to share with you, sorry. So about an hour later, another girlfriend at work came up and said, hey, Catherine, would you like to join us for lunch? There's 4 of us getting together. She said, who are they? She named all the women that she really liked in the office pool. And so they went, and guess what lunch was all about? They were gossiping about everybody else in the company, except of course each other. She couldn't wait to get back to her little cubicle. Long and short of it was, she came home and she was so frustrated and angry herself. She fell down in a heap, just weeping. And she knelt down and said, Father, forgive me. I did not know what had happened to me. That literally my interior life was crying out for some release of all this negativity. Fasting for her helped her do that. I think she said it was a week later she got her brand new idea for a very popular book called Two from Galilee. That's what fasting can do for us. It opens up other areas of our life. It could be our thought life, our feeling life, our relational life. So fasting is choosing not to do something or to do something in order to confront or face something that's out of order that affects relationships in general in your life. So, one of my directees came to me complaining about I had no time to pray, you know? And I listened to his whole story. I said, yeah, it sounds like you're really busy. I said, I'm not going to give you a lecture. I said, you're a priest, you know all this. I said, good. I said, I'm just wondering, could you commit to 10 minutes a day? He chuckled and said, yeah, I can do 10 minutes. I said, okay. Can you commit to that between now and the next month we get together? Okay. So he did. Literally when he walked through the door for the next appointment a month later, he said, you tricked me. I said, what do you mean? You knew if I prayed for 10 minutes I wouldn't stop at 10. I said, yes, I knew that. But if I would have said to you, come on, commit for 30 minutes or half an hour, you would have said, no, I can't do it. But see, we have to approach it from the angle of love. Whether it's self-love, love of God, love of another, that's the thing that can help transform us. The will isn't as helpful in this area because our ego can get in the way. We can start comparing ourselves with somebody else. How long do you pray? When I was in seminary formation, oh my gosh, as a faculty member watching seminarians, they would do the strangest things to prove that they were better than the next guy. I didn't see you in prayer hall today. How come you got up early? You know, I stayed for 45 minutes. Like, oh my gosh. We can laugh at it, but we all can be little-minded. Another area, of course, is the old tradition of praying each day. Praying each day. It's not as hard as you think. However, if you start adding different methods of prayer, like one more holy card you can pray, one more prayer that your mother gave you, one more rosary, all that, I want to ask you the question, is God asking you to do all that stuff? Probably not. St. Ignatius of Loyola said it beautifully, that it's not the best that's the enemy. No, it's the good. It's the good, the many goods that are the enemy of the best. So if your desire is to grow in closeness to God, in holiness to God, ask God what will work for you. Don't just take on all this stuff that your friends say, oh, you should do, oh, try it, oh. Why? I just smile when Christians give me more holy cards, more statues and stuff. Thank you. As if I need them. I don't need them. They need them. And so because they need them, they want to pass it on. Hopefully you're going to need it. It's like, not necessarily. You have to know your own soul. What helps you grow? What gets in the way of your growth? Chuck it. Any prayer form, any spiritual exercise is just meant to be a technique, an aid to help you mature in the spiritual life. Too much stuff can get in the way. Just like the lady who kept storing stuff more and more, and pretty soon she had no room for a car in the garage. Because the garage was filled with stuff. Guess what her adult children did when she died? They chucked it all. Didn't even go through it, they just chucked the whole thing. So, in a similar way in the spiritual life, we can become collectors. And that's not helpful. Jesus never said, blessed are those who collect. Collecting anything, including prayers. The second thing that can help you is meditation. Now, admittedly, nowadays in popular language, meditation and contemplation are mixed. They're two very separate things, traditionally. Meditation is sacred thinking. This is why you'll hear some preachers speak about meditate on the scripture. So you're kind of chewing on it, reflecting on, what does that mean to me? What am I supposed to do with this? That's meditation. Contemplation is just sitting in silence. Depending upon which stream you want to follow, sitting in silence could be coming up with an image to express what you're feeling. So this form uses images like icons, or pictures of loved ones, or artwork. We call this, it's a form of divina. I'm drawing a blank. It's a Latin word for visio divina. In other words, you're reflecting on the image. There's also audio divina. People who get a lot of spiritual nourishment from listening to particular types of music, where they sense God speaking to them. Okay? So to honor that, but it can also just be saying one word silently over and over again. Repetitive nature, calming you down. Or you can use your breath work as a contemplative beginning. Just focusing on your breathing in and out, or a contemplative walk. Not walking for exercise, but walking for the sake of paying attention to my steps, to my breath, or to what I'm seeing out here. All of those are part of the contemplative mindset. Here's one that's pretty much fallen into, I'd call it disarray. But I must admit, I am definitely a fan of this. St. John the Cross, who was no slouch, doctor of the church, said that spiritual reading is to the mind, but contemplation is to the soul. That's how important it is. So what I do each day is I spend half the hour in centering prayer and half in spiritual reading. You don't have to read a whole book. Spiritual reading is not studying for a test. If you get that out of your mind, it'll help a lot. Spiritual reading is you read to your full. So it's like, wow, that's enough. So for example, these two questions, maybe that's enough for you all week to reflect on. More is not better than less in the spiritual life. Again, the Desert Fathers are very clear about that. You may only need to read one paragraph, one page. And I know choosing the book is perhaps most important. So just because your girlfriend says, oh, read this, you'll love it, I would recommend you ask 2 or 3 other people, have you heard of this? There are lots of people recommended books to me, and like, it's what I would call fast food in the sense that it doesn't go deep. It's like fluff. Spiritual reading speaks to the soul. It's not about getting more information. It's about getting food to form your soul, the way you perceive reality. And that's a very different type of reading. Very different type of reading. So that's one of the things I did in seminary was create these bibliographies for seminarians. I have no idea if they use them. But traditional books, nowadays some podcasts can do something like that. But the only thing I would say in this area is be careful about, again, too much. Too much. If it's inflating you, it's too much. If it's filling you like deep watering, those of you who are landscapers and gardeners, deep watering helps the roots of the tree go down deep. Another way is to regularly seek out and create encounters with creation. Otherwise, you're just going to pay attention when you have to mow the lawn, or water the flowers, or dig up a dead plant, or notice the weeds, and that's not helpful. But to regularly do this, at least once a week. And by that I mean, go for a walk in a regional park. If you live close to the beach, go to the beach. On Thursday I was giving a workshop, and this one couple was sharing with me that for them, they know they need to get a dog. And I thought, well, that's an interesting comment. She said, let me tell you why. We've not had a dog for 5 years. We've had a dog in our whole marriage. We decided 5 years ago we couldn't do it. But after listening to what you said, we realized it was the dog that forced us every night to walk out in nature, or every morning. And so that's what we're going to do. Now you may say it sounds funny, but that's their spiritual exercise. Much more than their physical exercise. So what is it that will help you regularly connect with nature? And I don't mean running past or riding your bike past, but stopping and looking at that tree or that cloud. And the old kids do that for us. They say, Mommy, look at this! And they go and touch or play. Oh, no, don't touch it. It's like, why not? Go and feel it. Look at it. Hold it. Artwork and music. These are definitely ways to the divine. These are ways that you are sharing as a co-creator with God. Art that you create, art that you're drawn to, art that comes within you from an impression, and could be music as well. Please don't tell me that you're not artistic in music. You are. Because you're a reflection of the divine who's artistic and musical. It's just maybe that skill is not developed in you. That's different. Maybe you haven't practiced the discipline of how to do that. One of the best ways to start with art is draw with your non-dominant hand. That way you let go of judging yourself. Oh, that's like artwork with 3-year-old. Yeah, you're right. Because you haven't been drawn since you were 3. So you see what I mean? Same with music. What you sense is beautiful and can be helpful to you will be different than the person sitting next to you. The other one is much more in the general milieu, and that is religious services and practices that if you grew up in a religious environment, that you were taught. You'll be surprised how as we get older, you feel drawn to go back and to reclaim them now as an adult. I grew up in the Rosary, for example, and I grew up in the days where, May and October were a ladies' month. My mom was a former novice. That she thought she was called to be a nun, but thank God she wasn't, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. And my dad was in seminary for 5 years, so I was growing up in a real, seminary. So we prayed the Rosary on our knees in the front room in those 2 months. I couldn't wait to get old enough to say, I'm not doing this anymore. I didn't like the discipline. But I find now, I reclaim that. So when I drive, I pray a deck of the Rosary, and I consciously choose to offer it for somebody that I don't like, or I'm having a hard time with. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for Bob now at the hours. And then if I realize there's 2 or 3 people, I got 2 or 3 decades to go. By the end of the decade, I relax. You're right, Lord. I know I need to love them, forgive them, but okay. We'll talk tomorrow. So in other words, those type of things can work for me. That's why I wrote the book on devotions, to try and help us Catholics to reclaim some of the traditional things in a way that can serve us better as adults. Another way to honor the archetypal energy within you is the discipline of choosing body movement. You can call it exercise, you can call it movement, but it's about honoring this vessel. It's not who you are, it's true, but right off the bat, it's who you present yourself as. So, how is God inviting you to care for your body? The exercises that people are telling you you should do may not fit the care of your body, so don't do them. Do what works for you. Nowadays, some in the health profession are now calling this medicine for the body. Exercise is medicine for the body. It's not just strengthening and protecting your body, it's allowing, as I tell friends, who say, why do you keep exercising at your age? The simple reason it's not just about my physical reality, it's my emotional reality. I feel better. I deal with my emotions better. I don't let them imprison me. I express them through my jogging, or my walking, or biking. And choosing which type of exercise honors the fact that you're saying, okay, God, you've given me this body. Show me what's best for me. You start with Tai Chi. It's just slow movement. Chair yoga. Slow walking. What they've discovered in this area is every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. Walking, swimming, yoga, Tai Chi, it especially works in times of stress. Many years ago, I went through a 6-month bout of depression over a relationship that just fell apart after over 20 years. It was just very, very painful. And what got me through was every day I would go jogging and I would sit and center and pray. They were like handrails leading me into the basement of my life. And one morning, when I got up ready to go jogging, it was as if somebody turned the lights on. I began to see the colors again. And I knew I was well. I wasn't running from the loneliness or the pain. I kept confronting it every day. But those two practices, the inner and the outer, would serve me well. I've also discovered, I'm not sure if you've read the book, James Hillman wrote. It's a long title. Has anything good come after 100 years in the field of psychology? And his answer shortly is no. And he said, painfully, in reflection of many counselors, he said, talk therapy doesn't work. He says, talking helps us to understand does not help us change, usually. You have to incorporate the body. You have to incorporate the vessel. So the inner discipline helps us to go, okay, now what are we going to do with that? And as a spiritual director, I asked my directees, okay, how are you sleeping? Okay, any illnesses? At first they're kind of surprised. I thought this was spiritual director. It is. We're starting with your body first. Because your body and your soul, ideally, are meant to work together, back and forth. And it's how we grow in intimacy. Because the way that you experience your body is the way you live your life. The way you experience your body is the way you live your life. The way you experience your soul is the way that you dream and live your life in your life. Both are necessary. So, those of you who are in 12-step, or you've heard of it, or you have clients in 12-step, I'm sure you've heard of this. But they have a wonderful, helpful technique that are passed on to practitioners of 12-step that I have found especially helpful. And it's a way of keeping us awake or alert to times or possibilities that can pull us down into overwhelming loneliness. It's called HALT, H-A-L-T. It's an acronym. Actually, it's H subscript 3. And the way it goes is this. Don't let yourself become too hurried, hungry, horny, angry, lonely, or tired. Most human beings get triggered by one or more of these. Sure. Don't let yourself become too hurried, hungry, horny, angry, lonely, or tired. These are normal stress points for human beings. And each human being is going to be different about which really triggers them. But you've got several of these operating at once, especially if you're in a dysfunctional family, you just need to be aware. Now, if you've lived through that experience, you know you can see the signs in your hypervigilance. And you're aware, Dad's not going to be in a good mood. The mom did it. Okay, so you need to take care of yourself. What does that mean? What do you need to do so that you don't get in the full blast of a person who's completely unaware of what's going on? So I have found instruments of self-knowledge to be very helpful in growing in a deeper self-intimacy. Now this may not be for you, and I say that up front. But because I have an intellectual bent, I've always found these to be helpful. So one of the ones that can be helpful for you, what I call a survey or questionnaire, is the Myers-Briggs temperamental analysis. This was developed, C.G. Jung came up with it, the concepts, but Dr. Myers and Dr. Briggs, mother-daughter team, developed the whole testing instrument. Now, what we need to remember is this is our preference. When you take the test, it gives you a readout of what your preference is, given all things being equal. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Are you a sensate or an intuitive? Do you prefer thinking or feeling in making decisions? Are you a judging person or a perceiving person? Those are all code words and questions to getting to the core of, I prefer this. Many of us have what we call a work personality. and we have a home personality. This is why we can easily change masks, if you will, back and forth. Some of us then lose a sense of, well, who am I really? But what the test can do for you is show you the graph of this is your tendency. The thing that really helped me is, let's suppose like I'm in what they call an INFJ. My shadow is an ESTP. So it helps you to understand the people that really tick you off. Typically it might be your shadow walking around. All right? It also helps you to realize that you have all the types inside you. It's either conscious or unconscious. So given the right situation, you can lean into one or the other. You just have to switch. So there's one couple I know for many years. They had just learned about the Myers-Briggs, and they had a long drive across the desert coming home, and they got into a fight. Oh, God help them. And the wife was astute enough to say, stop, wait a minute. Let's put into practice what we just learned. And so what are you talking about? And she named this, because they were opposites when it came to thinking, feeling, or confidence. She said, take your pick. Do you want to argue from the thinking or the feeling? I think she walked in a trap. But he said thinking. She said, okay, just give me a minute. And she was able to ground herself. She said, okay, go ahead. She said it was the first time in their married life that they were able to disagree and resolve the conflict within 20 minutes. Usually they go on for hours. So you have it within you. This is the type of test that can help you find out your preference. I would give this particular instrument to couples preparing for marriage, and it was really fun to watch their feedback. This one couple, I'll never forget, they came in the office and they took the test, and the next time they came, they said, well, Father, how did we do? And I said, well, I must admit you're the first couple that ever met like this, but you are exactly opposite. And he said, well, we could have told you that. And I said, no, listen. Every single preference, you're both very different. So listen carefully. You will either have the most vibrant, alive relationship out of your whole family and friends, or you'll be divorced in 2 years. 2 years to the exact month, he came to see me and said, Father Jim, you were right. My wife and I are getting divorced. I said, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that I was right, but I try to explain it to you that it's extremely difficult, especially for the two of you being so young, to have the emotional power, strength to be able to deal with your shadow every single day. You can't run away. So this is helpful stuff. Secondly is the Enneagram. Now I know this has gotten bandied around by a lot of well-meaning religious people, and they say it's dangerous and all that stuff. Be that as it may, I've discovered this to be very helpful for me personally and with the directees I work with. The Enneagram is not about your preference. It's about your motivation. It's what motivates you from the inside to do what you do in life. It motivates you to relate the way you relate. And I must admit, it's much more complicated than the Myers-Briggs, but it's worth the effort if you want to do your own study. There's some retreat houses that offer an entire weekend retreat around this, but it would be helpful if you did a little bit of reading. Just go very careful with stuff that's online, because some of the tests they put out there of what number you are, they're really simplistic, and you can get misdirected. Ooh, several. Let me think about it. Okay. The last one I'd recommend, there's several out there, is one that we use at the seminary. Actually, we use the first one as well. It's called Spiritual Strengths Finder. I'll put the address up here for you. But it's online, www.spiritualstrengthsfinder.com. It used to be .org. Excuse me. That's to get your research, but you could also come at it with Heal Your Illness. Heal Your Illness. It sends you to the same place. Developed by a Catholic psychologist named Richard Johnson out of St. Louis. I had the privilege of taking a 5-day training with him on this. Wonderful. It evolved from his research when he was working in a hospital as the hospital psychologist, both for the patients and the staff. And he asked the question very simply, why is it with the same medication, the same medical team, people with the same illness, One gets worse or dies, and the other one does fine. As a psychologist, he asked the question. So he said it took about 10 years of research, maybe a little more, and he came up with this instrument. And what he discovered is every person has 6 strengths out of 36. And what he learned is when a person lives their life from the 6 strengths, they do fine in relationships. When they tend to go to one side or the other, he calls it shadow or compulsion. Shadow or compulsion. Too little or too much. And he found it worked also in marriage counseling. Helping the couple discover, okay, what are your strengths? Now, he's not a theologian, so it may surprise you to see the categories he has. One of them is humor, for example. Okay? Another one is patience. So you begin to see, oh, wow. So if you can do your best when you take the test, it's about $25, 125 questions. Once you recognize it, he even has prayers that go with it. Praying that you might remain stable in your 6 strengths and to live in that place. It also helps you wake up when things aren't going well. Ooh, yeah, I slipped in my shadow or my compulsive activity. So those are some ideas of how you can do that for yourself. Let's go into conversations with close friends. I know there's been a lot of material written about soulmates and soul friends and whatnot. The short definition for that is somebody who mirrors you into your life, that you feel close to. There's a deep sense of intimacy, closeness. But please remember that for human beings, there's many different ways or opportunities of growing in intimacy. Unfortunately, we tend to want to take a shortcut, and we look for or expect, for example, from your spouse or your best friend to be all of it. Okay? For example, just because you say your spouse is your best friend, your interpretation of best friend may be different than your spouse, your partner. Okay? Or the closest you feel with one work colleague may not be a sign of this really being an intimate relationship, just because they're always agreeing with you. There's 13 different categories or types of intimacy. So recreational would be another one. In terms of, you might call a buddy, or close friend that you'd like to do something with, a vacation friend. All of these are different ways of looking at being with human beings. So somebody who is truly close to you is somebody that you would share not just your thoughts with, but your feelings. So I've been involved in treatment work, like I said, for over 50 years. And I have found that most of us aren't willing to ask the deeper, more challenging questions to go deeper. So I'm involved with this men's group called Illumine. It's one of the things that we do to maximize our time together in a 5-day retreat, is I give them questions at their meals to talk about. And the first 3 meals, typically the men pause and say, "You're kidding us. You want us to talk about this while we're eating?" Yep. Because I know you guys, you prefer to talk about sports, or the weather, or your job. All distraction. You guys pay a lot of money to be here. You're giving your time. I want to help you maximize it. By the 4th meal, the guys are waiting for the question. "Oh, Jim, what about the question?" "Oh, thanks." And the men would say things like this: "I've never shared this with any other man. I've never shared any of these questions with anybody." So these are the type of things that as you feed and nurture your family, your partner, your friends at a meal, choose a question. Take as much time to choose a good question as you do to pick the meal, and watch and see what happens. Your kids won't want to leave the table. They're going to want to listen. Because let's face it, as parents, typically what parents do, "How was your day?" It's like the same question. "How was your day? Who'd you do it with?" No. And kids are smart. They know what you're doing. You're picking on them. You're delving into something they don't want to talk about right now. But if you open up the questions that are broader than just them, the whole family, the table sharing, they'll stick around. Powerful stuff. Questions. You don't believe me? Read the Gospels. Jesus asked 224 questions. He was asked 180, and he only answered 4. The other thing is that conversations with close friends, soulmates, family members are meant to enhance and deepen your self-awareness through a greater transparency and honesty with your significant others. I'm not sure if you've done any reading of Dr. Brene Brown. Have you heard of her? Sociologist. Yeah, wonderfully gifted, energetic woman. And the crux of her research, not only her own, but her team, is this: that authentic community doesn't happen unless you have robust vulnerability. Otherwise, just talking heads, sharing experiences. But when you speak from the heart, and you listen to the heart, and you get to the point, and you're spontaneous, there's a deep sense of respect, and people feel it. And that's why her books are so popular, because we all know it's true, and she's saying it now, both from a faith perspective and a science perspective, as a researcher. So any encounter with any human being, you can easily drop it down to the next level just by choosing the proper question. And by honoring those 4 principles: speak from the heart, listen from the heart, be spontaneous, and finally get to the point. This is why God created us, because God loves stories. And you, each of us, are a library of stories. We want to hear them, and we want to share them back and forth. Do you have any final questions? Yeah. This comes from what they call the way of counsel, a very traditional way that the First Nation people can share their wisdom. So you listen from the heart. In the Navajo tradition, after someone's spoken, you pause for at least a minute or two, just in case something else comes along. Listen from the heart. Secondly, speak from the heart. It's not about sharing ideas. No, you're speaking from the heart. Those 2 are extremely important. The third is be spontaneous. So if you're in a group and somebody's sharing something very meaningful, you don't sit there and start thinking about, how can I do better than she did? I want them to pay attention. What's coming up for you? You share that. And finally, you get to the point. Be brief. Be brief. So even though you want to give every single detail of what really happened, after about 4 minutes, people are starting to lose it. So you give the outline of the story. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
You mentioned
Myers-Briggs, yeah.
Yes. And when you mentioned, I am INFJ, but you mentioned the shadow when you're EN or something. I don't remember in testing discovering that aspect.
No. That was my insight that I gleaned from it, and part of my PhD is in depth psychology. So the beauty and the wisdom of depth psychology is it's what's underneath all of it. What's underneath your personality preference is the shadow. So it's the letters that are not mentioned. So for example, INFJ, it's E, extroversion. So right now I'm doing a lot of extroversion. At the end of the day, I'm going to be exhausted because I'm an introvert, okay? And then the other side of intuition is what? You remember? Sensate. So an intuitive person reads reality from the inside, the interior senses. A sensate person reads the 5 senses that we normally associate with, okay? And then a feeler, the opposite of that is a thinker. They both have a value system, a different way of getting to decisions. The last one, judging and perceiving. J is judging, meaning we need to be organized in our thought, or in our day, planning, etc. A perceiving person are the party people. They love to go with the flow. Unfinished business is no problem for them, but they're great fun to be with because they just love spontaneity. So both are meant to feed with and on each other. Okay, the last 15 minutes until you hear the bell, might be about 20. The lunchroom, by the way, is, can you see the stairs over here to your right? If you go up the stairwell, you'll be right outside the dining room. okay? But I'm gonna send you out 2 by 2. And I just want you to talk about one question, and that is, what do you do? What do you do that helps you grow in intimacy and acceptance of your interior life? What do you do that really helps you? This is not about trying to say, oh, you gotta try this too. No. This is how one person sees it. Okay? Is that clear? Yes. What is one thing that you do that really helps you mature, deepen, grow in your own love of self? Right? So you'll hear the bell. That's a sign for you to go up the top. And then it's lunch buffet. So you just get on either side of the table and just take what you want and sit down. If you would like to, because we might be seated at a table with people from another group, if you'd like to practice a conversation meal, let me give you a question.
First question would be,
Where are you still looking for permission to live your own life? Where are you still looking for permission to live your own life? Is it from the church? Is it from the government? Is it from your parents? Even if they're deceased? From your spouse? Where are you still looking for permission to live your life? The second one is, what new life wishes to come into being through you? What new life wishes to come into being through you? So repeat those again. Where are you still looking for permission to live your life? What new life wishes to come into being through you? Okay, happy sharing.
So one quick announcement. So the lunch area requires walking up a set of 2 flights of stairs, and the young man is going to come around with a golf cart to take you up there if you have problems walking. So please wait out here. He'll be here at 12:25, and he'll take you up there. If anybody still needs to pay for today's retreat, please see me sometime before it ends. Also, we do have a photographer here, and I'm sure at the end of the retreat you could possibly take a group picture for Act Heals. Thank you. You can be on Instagram. Also, Father Jim has provided his books, and if you're interested in purchasing any one of his books, please see Kathy, and she will help you with the payment.
time to go for a walk. Who's your partner?